Hi everyone, my name is Saleha Singh and welcome to Gupshup with Saleha. Tonight we are chatting about jobs. Yes, that elusive jobs. Meet my guest, Naishadh Gadani, a podcaster and a career coach. Naishadh has been helping migrants and international graduates get their dream jobs and find careers that they love and live their Australian dream. Welcome to the show, Naishad. How are you?
I'm very well, Saleh. I'm really excited to be part of this show. I've always sat on the other side of the table. It's good to be on this side of the table, being questioned,
Yes.
for the show. But I'm really looking forward to answering some of the pertinent questions that a lot of people are having right now.
Yes.
And yeah, so let's have more questions and let's really, help these job seekers out. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. So before I start with the questions, and I also have some questions from a previous show that we did, which we couldn't answer. Um, do you want to tell my viewers something about yourself, please? Because I've done a very basic introduction.
Sure, absolutely. So, my name is Naishadh. I come from Gujarat. I've been living in Australia for over 13 years now, and I came here started my career as an engineer, but soon I realized that I think my interest was more in human engineering rather than
Human
mechanical
engineering.
engineering.
Okay. Yes.
So I changed my career after two redundancies. So redundancies were the triggers for me to look at other career options. And
Yes.
so I changed my career in 2009, and I have always wore two hats. So I've always worked, full time, part time, and I always ran my own business as well.
Wow.
So
Busy
I've got
day.
experience. Yes, it is. I've got experience in traditional employment system for over 3 years, career transition work, and currently working with Center for Multicultural Youth as a
Wow.
program leader. And I also run my own, own business as well, where I primarily work with migrants and international graduates. And I also have my own LinkedIn live show that I do
Yes.
every day. So that's pretty much it about me.
So tell us about your LinkedIn Live show before I start with the questions.
Yeah, so LinkedIn Live Show came about, because of COVID. When COVID hit, or it started to create lockdowns all across the world, I was on holiday with my family in India,
Wow.
and I think I was in Ahmedabad when the lockdown was announced. National lockdown was announced in India, and at that time, I think simultaneously Australia was also going into lockdown. So me and my long-term colleague, a friend, we got together. He said, "Let's do something for these job seekers because they are hurting the most." At
Yes,
that time, some
absolutely.
of the numbers coming out of Australia was absolutely mind-numbing, honestly. So we thought, what do we do? So we decided to create a LinkedIn live show, and we started to do daily. Did not realize the impact of that, did not realize how well that will be received. But our intention was very simple, that we wanted to bring hope and optimism to job seekers in these dark times. And the way we do that is we bring diverse ideas to the discussion. So we interview experts, professionals, to people who have just done some amazing career changes, and we interview them. And we do this daily now, and we have completed 118 shows so far every
Whoa,
day.
okay.
So now it's been a hell of a journey, but
I
it's
can
something that
imagine. Yes,
I will never, I don't regret doing that, because it's a huge commitment.
it
But at the
is. Yes,
same time, when we receive heartening feedback about how it has helped people change some of their perceptions, I think that makes it worth. Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And I've seen a few of your LinkedIn live shows, and they're awesome. I love your guests. They are just so unconventional. People from different walks of life. Yes.
That's
Okay.
absolutely right. That's what we
Yes.
wanted to do, is to bring
Absolutely.
bring diverse ideas and
Yes.
going after stories. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Nashad, The most important questions: where are the jobs? Where do you find them? How do you find them?
Very good. So, if the first question is where are the jobs? It's a very dynamic market right now. Every week situation changes, and especially in Victoria, it is still very early days to determine where the jobs will be once the COVID restrictions are lifted. So, but what we are seeing is that, for example, healthcare to social assistance are going to be still going to be the leading sectors where the hiring will be ramped up. We will also see the logistics and warehouse that we have seen also in these times also that there has been very steadily growing as well. A lot of people say IT sector's been because they can work from home. It's kind of a myth. Not everybody can work from home
No,
easily
you
as well.
can't.
So it's
Yes.
not. Yeah, I think we have to take that with a pinch of salt. Second sector that I was talking to a jobs board just today, and he said that they saw a huge increase in cleaning kind of a business just because that now you would
Yep.
see that
Yeah.
a
Deep
lot of
cleans.
people
Yep. Yep.
deep clean. That's right. That's
Yep.
another thing,
Yep.
right? We
Yep.
have never
Yep.
seen that,
Yep.
but they've seen now a drop into that because of the restrictions. They don't want anybody to even come into their home and do those kind of cleaning too,
Yep.
right? So it used to spike and now it is going down as well. So we will see that the things which are kind of very high contact stuff may not come to may not those market may not come back as quickly as we expect. But I still expect that by December, in next couple of months, we will still see a good amount of reasonable amount of jobs will open up. But I would not say that the market that we had last year or maybe in January, I think it's going to be a while. Anecdotal evidence says, Saleha, that when global financial crisis 2008-9, it took almost 7 to 8 years to recover the amount
Yes.
of employment it was there. Now, I am not an expert, I'm not an economist, nor I'm a labor market expert to really say how long will it take, but it's going to be bumpy ride, and that is absolutely for sure. That it's going to be challenging for many of the people to to get into the market. But that's what it will call for, a lot of creativity. It will call for a lot of thinking, a little bit different thinking around where you can now position yourself. And we have heard numerous examples and stories in last 6 months that people have started to look at, okay, if I can't do that, then what else can I do? Where else can I? There's a word which has been overused in these times
Yes.
called pivot.
Yes.
Where do you pivot, right? Now, it's a very simple question, but it's not easy to answer that, when
No.
you are really under that pressure of your managing your life expenses, family expenses. So it's not an easy question to answer, but I'm more than happy to take questions around that,
Yeah.
because I
I'm
think it
sure
will
it
be
will
very
come.
pertinent one. Yeah.
So while talking about work from home, this was a question from a previous chat that we had, Tanvi and Anujin. So we ran out of time, which is why we couldn't answer this question. So I'll just ask you this. This was from Siddharth Jain, who wanted to know if IT jobs will move completely to work from home, and do you think bosses will be more prepared for staff to work from home in the future?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I don't think so. I've formed a real concrete view on that. I've got both the perspectives. I'll probably give obviously we've seen Airbnb to even Altasian in Australia also have said that we will give opportunity for people to work from home. I should probably go back 6 months back and tell you that there are some lot of fundamental shifts were happening in the labor market across the world, which was work from home flexibility, use of technology to improve efficiency. All those things were happening, but what COVID has done is that it accelerated that that pace completely. To give an example, my dad would never use a Zoom before. Now he uses so effectively just because he's now compelled or constrained
Yes.
to use that. So I think a lot of people will see, some of the organization will see that they are now able to also use work from home, or other technologies to make sure that the job gets done. But I'm not a lot of optimistic around that a lot of things will move from home, because I have started a new role with my current employer, completely onboarded online. I sometimes joke that if I see my colleagues that I do not see them on Zoom calls, and they bump me up into calls or woolies, I'll probably not even recognize them. Now, what work from home does is, obviously it gives flexibility, but not everyone's home, their
Yes.
personal circumstances, to the living circumstances are geared to give the effectiveness, the productivity, and the engagement. And one of the biggest thing, is around the employee morale and the engagement. I don't know how many trivia nights can you run in a week to make
Yes.
people feel included, right? You know,
There is a Zoom
it's
fatigue, Nashad, already.
That's another one, right?
Yes.
And whether this really engages me as as an employee or not. And secondly, is whether am I really think creatively. There are a lot of study done around bringing people together, to bounce ideas, and develop some thinking around projects, and doing hackathons, for example.
Yes.
Now all those things, I don't know how much, can you take them virtually, and how much effective they would be to an organization's bottom line. I don't know that. I don't think so anybody has that answer. But I think it's a case to case. It's, I think, every organization might say, look, if it works for you, tell us. And I think they might work case to case, rather than a blanket one that let's stop
Yep.
everything, let's just not don't renew our lease, and just go ahead
I
and
mean, real estate prices are not going down as yet. That means.
yeah. Look, I'm not, as I said, I'm not an economist, nor real estate specialist. But I sincerely doubt that that we might rock up to Melbourne CBD, and we might see a scene from I Am Legend movie, that there's nobody on the street. I
That's not going
seriously
to
doubt
happen.
that that might happen. Yeah.
All right. We have a first question,
Okay.
and I will put it on the screen. Um, Avinash wants to know, what sectors do you think will boost post coronavirus?
That's good, Avnish. Thank you for the question. I think, as I mentioned, healthcare, social assistance. To give you an example, if you are going to work in disability care, or if your organization, if you've got a role in personal care, I think nursing, any of those associate ones will continue to grow.
So, essential
Secondly, is
workers.
essential workers. Absolutely, that's what you got to think about,
Yes.
right? Secondly, we will also see, there's a, and I will probably send you some research. Recently there was a research done by National Skills Commission, and they identified 25 emerging occupations. And if I, as I'm doing it, I'll see if I can find that
Yes.
article. And they've said data, around people to work in as a data analyst, data architect. Then they also, talk about project managers. We'll still need project managers. Now, there are creative, or sort of opportunities as well, where if you can help people set up virtual offices, or help people be more used to the online technologies, that might be growing as well. I also see that the warehouse, so the logistics market will also grow, because as it opens up, I think you will still need lots and lots of people to transport a lot of things, which has an impact on the on that. But secondly, in particular in Victoria, what I will see is that, if you have observed it for last 2 3 years, the government has created a lot of infrastructure pipeline, be it
Yes.
metro project, to be it east west,
Yep.
northeast
Widening.
tunnel.
Yes, absolutely.
That's right. And so
Monash is
I
constantly being upgraded.
constantly
Yes.
widening. That's right. But they've got, don't quote me on this, but I think that Victorian government has got around $50 billion of infrastructure projects, kind of currently working on. Obviously this has stalled a lot of things, But I think the government will also invest heavily into infrastructure, support, which include building roads and bridges, tunnels, to a lot of things. I think it's going to be, that's going to drive lot of other jobs that
So
will come as
engineers,
a result
project
of that.
managers, construction
I think
workers,
that will,
everything. Yes,
yeah. So it may not, and I should also say, I'm not saying that it will immediately start to, like, 15th September, let's imagine the stage 4 restriction ends 17th September. It may not. But I think it is also incredibly important to understand is that, people will still need a lot of things. The government still needs to provide a lot of services to the people. And that is where one has to look at.
that's where the job creation.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Abnish wants me to read another question. He says, also another question. Do you think I should accept a job with lesser pay in a different field to my experience because of this pandemic, or should I wait to get a job in my field and be patient?
Look, I'll probably, Avnish, take, and before I answer that question, I think it's a individual circumstances that needs to look after. And I always say that, look, if you're going to struggle paying your bills, if you're going to struggle looking after yourself or your family members in their health and well-being, I don't think so. You taking a $5, $10 pay cut would affect that much. So on just by knowing, just these 5 lines of questions, I would say that you should definitely consider that, because you can always go back. um, you
Yes.
know you can
Once the
always go
economy
back.
opens up, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
and secondly is that I think, obviously, a lot of people are also concerned about that. I'm working as let's say I'm working as a business analyst, and I've now taken a job to do some project coordination work, for example. And then what happens to my career graph? I think employers also know that this time, 2020, then if you say that you lost a job and you started to work
Yes.
somewhere else, I don't
They
think
all
so. Employer
understand.
would
Yes,
mind it. Employer will
absolutely.
say, hang on, that is fine. In fact, if you see the market, recruitment consultants are one of the vocation that has been affected a lot into
Yes,
this.
I know. I know
You
that.
know, so
Yes,
I
somebody
think
called me up to say there are no jobs. He said we advertise, but I'm sorry, there are no jobs because people are not hiring. This happened to me, so I know that.
exactly, exactly. So I think that is what that is what I, kind of, what I suggest, that you should look at.
Okay, let's go to my most favorite subject, LinkedIn profile. What should it include? Let's have the top points from you, Nisha.
Sure. So obviously, I think LinkedIn is becoming a very central to our career. LinkedIn, I think, I don't remember, but there will be around 9 million plus users, just in Australia, overall around 650 million users. So it's an important tool to have your LinkedIn profile. But there are, I think I can talk for 2 3 hours on that. But if I look at just some of the important elements around this, if you want to get that right, obviously you want to get your picture right. Not that it necessarily makes a difference to how LinkedIn algorithm finds you, but I think it's equally important that when somebody meets you in person, they say, "Yep, this is Saleha, and this is a picture." And when I meet her, they are not different. Obviously, I don't want to put Shah Rukh Khan's picture and then say, it
You
looks
don't want to
pretty
put
pretty
Shah
good.
Rukh Khan's picture, please. But
But my point is, I think that's important thing. Secondly is, try to get your profile to all stars. So I think if you're setting up your profile, it gives you kind of a continuous rating around where your profile needs improvement. That's a LinkedIn inbuilt thing, that it gives
and
you an
LinkedIn guides
indication.
you through it, isn't it? I mean, it tells you whether
Absolutely.
your profile is good, needs improvement, or yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
Absolutely. And say, so then which are the ones important? Then your headline is important. Under your name, you've got the headline. Now, you must understand that, headline, what you write in headline is searchable. So LinkedIn algorithm will look at that headline and that keyword for that.
Yes,
By default, it's your current role. That's what will pop up by default.
yes.
right? So you got to change it. And I think LinkedIn has now increased the characters in that headline. I think you can go to 240 characters or 220 characters. I don't know exactly, but now I think they've increased the headline, how Twitter did, a couple of
Yes.
years back, where they increased the characters limit.
Characters. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what you got to think about, that headline, and think about what role are you looking for. So if you're, let's say, if you're looking for a role as a project manager, but project manager will not be searched by people, because if I go and look at a project manager on LinkedIn, and just in Melbourne, I think I'll come across with 7,500 project managers. So nobody will search for project manager. They'll search for something more specific, agile project manager, for example. So then you got to put what's the exact
Words.
role that you are
Yes.
looking
Yes.
at, right? So that's couple of keywords around that. And secondly, I always encourage people to give us something more human touch to that, right? So, I help is a very simple way to start a statement. So I help organizations. Let's say you work as a project manager. I help organizations reduce the project time by 30%, and improve the efficiency by 50%, right? Now that is a really engaging headline, because just by looking at that, what I've done is that I've created a strong value for people to see. So when they see two project managers, they'll say, hang on, Naishad seems to be more more understanding of his impact on the work, and that's what we want to demonstrate. So I think having that bit of that, it could simply be that I'm on a mission to put a dent in the world through engineering, right? I don't think so. I don't think so. It is your own views, it is your own take on your vocation that you are talking about. So that covers that. And secondly is the about me, or the profile summary. I think it is around 2,000 characters long that you can write. So obviously you can write huge amount of stuff. Now profile, you got to treat LinkedIn profile summary differently than a resume. Saleha, by default, I've seen a lot of people copy resume summary and stick it in that.
Yes.
It
But that
doesn't.
is not your. Yes.
Yeah, and it doesn't give me any indication about you as an individual. LinkedIn is kind of, what LinkedIn is? LinkedIn is kind of a middle ground between your Facebook and your resume. It's kind of middle ground. You got to find that middle ground, and always think about what's interesting about you. What is your views on your vocation, right? What are some of the things that you really find engaging about your work? Pour your heart out. You don't we don't want to You don't need to say that you are a wildlife photographer if you're applying for a project manager role, but if you can make a connection between them, then
Yes.
it's great. I'm all the opinion of that. I'll give you an example. I recently worked with an Android developer, and she wrote in her questions, answers, that she doodles, and doodling is her hobby.
Yes.
and
Yes.
I- and
What a
and
great
we kind of,
hobby. Yes.
right, and I said that we can connect that, create that connecting, that doodling has got a lot to do with creative thinking, has
Creativity.
got to
Yes.
know creativity, and software development is also creativity, and we can merge that. So I actually put that in the resume, in the LinkedIn profile summary, that how this, as an artist and my software development, they are connected with it, right? So when somebody reads that, they will say, hang on, this person makes a different sense now. This is not a stock standard Android developer or
Yes.
software developer, but this is very interesting. And that's what you got to think about. And secondly, Saleh, last point is that most of the time when we start to write, we think that that's the final draft of things. I always look at, first of all, what you do is take a butcher paper, anything, and just start making points, right? And then start to make some connecting tissues, right? And then say, okay, now this makes a little bit more sense. Now this tells a story about me. I'm also talking about how did I end up in my career, right? And then what you do is you take it to your friends, and say, look, have a read through that. Remember, if if something is written, it has to replace your explanation.
Yes.
If you have to say that, then there is no point, right? Then you might as well record a video or something and say, don't read my profile, just listen to me what I have to say. So I think that is what is required into that. Sprinkle that particular summary section with keywords, that what people will be searching for, and that's what it will give you some understanding. And remember this, try it out after a week or a fortnight. If you can actually see who's visiting your profile, if you don't see that the people who are connecting with you or reaching out to you are not from your target audience, then you go back and change it.
Change
You
it.
don't need to be. And that is what I want to really emphasize, is that it's your own story, it's your own own place. You can change it. Nobody, there are no rules around this as well. That how many frequently time can you change and
Yes.
everything. Yeah.
Questions are coming in, thick and fast, so I'll read the next one. Nupur wants to know, in Australia, do you think we should look for a public sector job than a private sector one like in India, because of the if what public sector is considered more secure from security point of
Yeah, look, Nupur, thank you for the question, and I must, burst the myth. The first instance, I think job security is a myth, and I think if you go to even public sector here, there are more contractual roles and rather
yes,
than
I
ongoing
was in
roles,
one of them. Yes, I know. They
right?
don't want a permanent person. Yes,
That's right. That's right. And it's all over the world. The trend is that there are more contractual work. I'm not saying that contractual work or short-term contract is good or bad. For individual perspective, it's not a great idea, because there's a gap. Then you got to look at finding some other contract. So it's a constant, like you're on an edge constantly.
yes,
I'm not saying it's a good or bad, but I think we also have to accept the new realities of the marketplace also, that there'll be more short-term contract roles available in public and private sector both. To give an example, we were talking to a recruiter today, and she said previously there used to be 3 months to 6 months contract. Now there are
yes,
1 or 2 weeks contracts also.
yes,
There are people who just say, "No, what? I just want this done. Can I get somebody to come and get this done? 2 weeks. I pay more for contract work, obviously." And they get that done and move to the next one. So I think there are, it is perceived to be more stability there, but I doubt whether there are any evidence that suggests that there are more stability in the public sector than a private sector right now. Probably 10 years before, the world was a different place altogether.
last year the world was a different place too.
That's right.
Yes. I'll show you the next question. Prasit wants to know, do you have any tips for how to ask for a pay rise while at a job? Is there a way to see what the standard pay for your occupation is?
Yes, thanks for the question, Prasid. So first thing is, do you have any tips for how to ask a job? Is to ask a pay rise, right? Now, when you ask for anything, remember this. My son wanted something, right? And then the next question is, why do you want it? As a parent, obviously, I can
Yes.
dominate him and ask him all the questions that my boss asks me, that why do you want it? So you got to bring a case study. You got to bring a business case for your pay rise. You got to demonstrate that these are the reasons why I need a pay rise. I was expected to do X, Y, and Z, but I've done X, Y, Z plus A. Provide some concrete evidences of your results. I think that is one of the most important way that somebody will offer you a pay rise. Secondly, is there a way to see where the standard pay for your occupation is? Yes, absolutely. When you sign an employment contract, you are given a kind of a modern award. Under what award are you getting paid, or what modern award relates to your occupation? And if you go to Fairworks website, there are award titles available. You can actually look at them and get a sense of even in that award there are labels, for casual, for part-time, for full-time, and certain labels as well. So I think it requires you for you to really study that, but if you want to do it, you can obviously go and find out. Now if you don't know what award you are under, then obviously go and ask your manager or your organization, that, "Look, can you tell me what award am I paid under?" And that's probably is the best way for you to go about.
I think a lot of us don't understand the award system, because I think in some places you have the band, and some places it is very open, especially if you're in the government or in the education sector. You know what band you fall under. And but the award, oh, I don't know what's happening. Why there's so much of an echo? Um, and sometimes, and the award system, I know I could never understand. And I was working in a private organization for 11 plus years. I had no idea what the award meant. But where can one get to know all this?
I think Fair Work Ombudsman. I think they would keep all the track of all these awards.
Okay. Yes. I hope, Prasit, it answers your questions. I'll ask another question from a previous week, which I think is very relevant, because we were talking about, LinkedIn and Facebook and why it should be different. Deepak had sent a question which said that I have heard that recruiters these days look beyond their CVs or the interview by going to a candidate's online presence, especially their social media. Is that true? If yes, are there any tips for how one should manage their online image? And I think that's a great question, because where do we
It
draw the
is.
line between Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn? They're all different. It's just too
It
much.
is. It is. And before I answer that question, I'll tell you a story. I used to work in employment agency many moons back, and one of our trainee, we placed her to work in a community center, and she was there doing her work experience, and she was very close to getting a job there, part-time work. She was straight out of school, so she wanted to get an experience. We organized it, and she was really very efficient at her work. What happened was, when she was about to be interviewed for an ongoing role, from a volunteer to a paid role, she went on Facebook and said that, "While I'm writing this message to you, my manager and her manager are currently working on deciding whether to employ me or not." And she tagged the her manager.
Oh my
Now,
God.
what happened was that the manager found it very, the post wasn't offensive at all. But what manager were concerned about is somebody who cannot really contain any information
Yes,
with her.
yes.
And that was a really red signal for her. And she decided that we don't
He
want to
was.
have her. Now, obviously this goes, 7 8 years back, Saleha. Things are more complicated now. Things are far more complicated, as we saw just 2 days back. We had a fight in Sydney.
Yes,
We
I
all
read
two,
about that.
two groups of people. Now those names, may be splashed across the social media. And I'm not saying that people with those with that kind of negative press do not get a job. Mind you, I'm not even suggesting that too, but it does have an impact, because you got to, the more that you grow in your career, it starts to hurt you more.
Yes,
When
absolutely.
when you are at an entry level, it does not affect you as much. Obviously, in certain organizations, they look at everything about your social media footprint. They'll go to Facebook, they'll go to Instagram, they'll go to Twitter. They'll make sure that it's all clean. They are not suggesting that you can't have an opinion on things. Okay, it is not about being having an opinion, but whether that opinion is consistent to that or not. Right. Now, there are always risks associated with it. Right. Free speech comes any speech comes with consequences, and that's what we got to really think about that. I use Twitter a lot. I don't use Facebook at all. It's just that I've got a presence there. But I'm very mindful of that. I've carved an online presence that I wish, then who am I? So when somebody meets me in person, they see some consistency that, you know what, Naishad is exactly how he is, right? And that is very important in terms of managing your online reputation. Now, you can actually, because as we know, a lot of the time on social media, Solea, it's all about perception. Perception is reality. In marketing also, we have seen that. And if you think like that, then you'll be more cautious, then you'll be more aware, then you will write things, you will talk about things that matters to you. We are not at all, I don't think so the employer will take away, will not offer you a job because you don't agree to a political opinion. I think that is doubtful.
Yes.
But if you are, but if you are, let's say, hurtful, or if you're disrespectful, or if you are, disrespecting a community and all those things, that we will see that there'll be repercussions. Unless that, once that is brought into the larger, scheme of things. Otherwise, you can fly under the radar and people will not have any problem. But there are so major things that you got to worry about is right now LinkedIn, then your Facebook, Instagram, and then Twitter. Twitter is not many employees go and check on Twitter, because let's say if you got, I've got a very distinct name, so it's easy for me to find. But let's say that there is Amar Patel, right? There will be probably million Amar
Yes.
Patels out there. So it's very difficult to find you on Twitter. It's easy for them to find you on LinkedIn. It's also difficult for them to find you on Instagram also, because you can have,
Yes.
a different name,
Multiple
Cool
names.
Amar
Yes.
or
Yes.
something.
Yes.
Exactly, right?
That
On
sounds good.
Facebook,
Cool
you
drama.
don't.
Yes.
But on Facebook, you don't. Facebook, you
Yes.
don't hide that identity, because you want to be found by your friends and school friends and alumni and everyone else. And LinkedIn, you will not change your name. So I think LinkedIn and Facebook are the two major things that you need to be aware of.
Careful about.
And I've also seen, Saleha, that a lot of people keep their Instagram and especially Instagram private. So they don't. You need their permission to
Check
even,
them out. Yes.
check them
Yes.
out as well. So I think there are ways that you can do that, but make sure that you are not really, being photographed in a very strange and awkward situations, because if somebody goes and
Compromising.
puts you, yeah, kind of, so you want to make sure. Now, that's what my concluding remarks is. Make sure that not make sure, but you can't blame gravity because you fall down from the third floor. Gravity is not responsible. Gravity works exactly the same, by the way. You can't blame gravity on it. You can only blame yourself. Right? That's what I would say.
Okay. I'll read out a question from, again, the previous show, which we couldn't answer. Shrija Dev had asked that her daughter was about to start a new job in the tourism industry before the pandemic started. Do you have any suggestions for her? Do you think she should change her field, as we don't know when the pandemic will end and where the tourism industry will pick up?
Look, it's unless we really get to know the person, it's very difficult to answer those questions, because as you would appreciate, calling a GP saying that you've got a tummy ache. GP can't really determine, unless the GP understands you've got a blood pressure. What did you eat? There are so many things that they can diagnose it properly. But given the question, just on the prima facie, I can say, you know, I think what we have always seen, and I'll probably go back, that typically in coming from a migrant background, is coming from subcontinent background. I think we have got a very fixed view of our career. What do I mean by fixed view? If you're an engineer, you work in engineering. If you are in IT, you work, specifically in IT. If you're an accountant, that's what you do. So then, I think we are not really taking any liberty to expand. We are not taking any liberty to think anything outside of that as well. And we have to stop looking ourselves as a vocation, but looking at ourselves as a bunch of skills, that we have got skills available to us. And then you got to think about, how can I reorganize those skills, right? And there's a simple, one of my favorite, one of the legend in our industry is called Dr. Jim Bright, and his theory is our chaos theory of careers. I won't go into the theory, but he got us to do a very interesting exercise, so simple. He asked us to take 50, identify 54 skills that we have. Now there's also a concept called transferable skills. What do I mean
Yes,
by
we talked
transferable?
about that.
Right?
Yes,
Right.
good you touched on
So
it. Yes.
yeah. So what is transferable skills? That means that let's say that I worked as an engineer, I worked in sales, I worked in marketing, business development, I also did presentation, and I also do career coaching, right? So now if I'm not doing career coaching and if I have to shift my career somewhere else, I can think about, can I train people doing presentation? Because I've done that enough for last 20, at least last 15 years, I can do that. And then secondly, I look at that I've done sales also. So can I combine this and can make it, is it possible to have a career or not? So going back to the exercise, so everybody will have 54, skills. Time management is a skill, right? Taking minutes of meeting is a skill. So then what he did was he said, look, now take a Rubik's cube out and put all those skills in every side. So you've got 54 skills, then you've got nine cubes and then six sides of 54, right? And then he said, now you turn it any way that you want. And you look at the face, and what you see is that three skills changes and the new three skills come in.
Yes, of
And now
course.
you got a new nine
New,
skill.
yes,
Right now you can say, wow, I've never seen it like that, right? Now I can see a different career option for me just based on these nine skills that I have. Then you
correct.
turn it around and say, oh wow,
And you
this is
have,
another three
yes,
skill, right?
yes, yes.
Now if you think about this, very simplistic way to put in, Saleha, but my point is that it is still equally important for us to look at what do we have, right? What are the skills do we have? And if I can conclude this, that there is a theory which is called, strength-based approach. That means what do you have? There is a theory in positive psychology around strength-based approach. What it says, in a very kind of very simplistic way is that you got to think about what you have. What you don't have, there are a million things that you don't have, right? That you never have that. I'm pretty sure Mukesh Ambani will also think that there are things that Jeff Bezos have I don't have that,
Oh
right?
my God,
Right.
really?
What I'm saying
Okay,
is
I want to be
no,
in Mukesh Ambani's shoes then.
but what I'm saying is that I think we have been trained enough to think about what we don't have. But if
Yes,
you
than
think
what
about
we
what
have.
you have and then think, if this is what I have, what do I do with it? Right? And that's what is required is a bit of creativity, bit of trial and error. Talk to people, figure out, right? I think there's, and also where it helps you with this one is that if you got a very small network, what happens, Saleh, is that your view about career is also restricted.
Yes,
You're not breaking through that network and going and mingling with other people
yes.
who might have a very different approach to career, because knowing and understanding a lot of how people have changed career and asking question can
That is going to
spark
be my next
curiosity.
question. Okay, yes. So I have another question for you, Shrija, who I had taken a question last week. Can I please ask an employer, how can you make sure you are getting the best possible candidate in the accounting field? Okay.
I don't understand, but if you are asking is, that can I
How
please
do you
ask an
ask
employer
your
how?
employer? Yes. How do they choose their candidates?
Oh, that's a
I'm
that's
guessing
a
you
million
can't, can
dollar
you?
question, Srija. And every employer will have a different answer. Some employers are very much focused on the technical skills. Some employers say, I don't worry about technical skills. I'm more worried about cultural skills. I'm more worried about whether this person can fit into my
Yes,
culture
I
or
think
not.
that's a big
Okay,
change, isn't it? They have to fit into
big
the
thing.
team.
Yeah, but remember this, Saleh. I give this example of, I'll probably sound, a little melodramatic here, but if you think about it, just in an Indian context, the girl comes to, or the boy goes and checks out the girl, families meet and everything else. the boy's mom or the family concerned about not that whether she can cook a samosa or make a kheer or not, right? They're more concerned about is if if this girl's going to come into my family, whether she will act as a cohesive bond or is she going to disperse everyone, right?
And you
And
can never
that's what they
tell.
check out. You can never,
Yeah,
obviously we don't have
can
a
never
crystal
tell.
ball so
No.
far, so you can never tell that. But my point is that cultural skill trumps the technical skills, because I can teach you, Saleha, how to use a StreamYard. I can't teach you that you got to try it out. I can't teach you that, look, you got to arrive on time. That is for 16-year-old when they start to work in McDonald's,
Yes.
not for them. So I think that's what you got to look at now. There are, a lot of different ways that you can appeal to an employer. You can have a great resume, can have outstanding interview skills, and but it will still boil down to one of the things that it boils down to is, do I like this person or not? Do I really want to be around this person or not? And that's very critical. I
Yeah.
think we all are biased individuals. We all have our biases. And what happens is that it's very difficult to find a balance between your bias and really selecting a person. And sometimes people look at the individual and say, I really like this person, he or she communicates well, they present well, they are really super smart. How about getting this done? And you may not know particular software, but they can still avoid
Yep.
looking at
And you
that
can, yep, you can
because
always
they can
learn.
teach you. They
Yes.
can teach you, right? They can teach you those things, but they can't teach that essential skills. They can't teach that invisible skills that you have.
Okay. Um, I think this should be the last question, unless, of course, I get another question from a viewer. Career change. Career change. I remember, I finished college in Calcutta and I went to
Mm.
the Oberois. I did my master's halfway through, found it really boring. Oberoi's offered me a job, sounded so exotic. So I took it up. And then I did my own business. And then I was in project management. Then I was with USAID. And up until March, I was writing for a living for the last 14 years. And I've changed careers so many times. And my mother could never ever understand what it meant. You know why? Because she was in a government job. She started as a teacher, and she was a teacher till the day, a principal till the day she retired. So, and career change, they keep saying you have at least 10 careers in your lifetime. So let's
Yeah, and it
talk
would be
career
right.
change.
I think the it's a dramatic, an accelerated change that we find ourselves in. It's a very volatile market. I think we are in a hyper connected environment. Something that happened originated in China has completely changed the world in just last 7 8 months. So I think we all need to be ready with that. One of the things that I've learned over, I myself have gone through career transition in Australia, and I think I've assisted many people also. Is that I really liked a word that Reid Hoffman, who is the founder of LinkedIn, said in his book, that we all have to be permanent beta. It's a paradox, that you can't be permanent if you're a beta, but you can't be beta if you're permanent, right? But that's the point, is that you always have to be learning, you always have to be on the edge. Gone are the days where we can rest on our laurels and say, this is it, I've
Yeah.
got this on a cruise drive now, and this is an autopilot, and I don't have to worry about 10 years about this. I seriously doubt, unless you are obviously Ambani's son, you can take that kind of direction, but you don't. So I think we all have to continuously be evolving. We all It is also very easy for me to say than to be done, but I think we can always look at small changes that we can make, to new habits that we can develop that helps us to make that career changes, right? And what is important is learning. you know learn, but not necessarily just learn about your industry. You know, learn something else. Go and learn. Pursue a hobby, pursue something that you always wanted to do. For example, I always found doodling very exciting and very, very, interesting. So I signed up for a, doodling course, earlier in the year, and I was slowly learning it, right? Because what it does is that it gives me more clarity and creativity in the work that I do. So it enhances my current occupation, and I bring my learning from that to here. So there is a lot of kind of value in you pursuing something lateral.
Yes.
It could be golf, it could be cricket, it could be gardening. It could be anything, right? But what you want to do is to continuously learn. Secondly, is learn one skill every year. Just take on one skill every year. It could be anything. What it does is that sometimes we find power into our work through different means. And that's what I want everybody to get, that you can be more prepared for those changes or the shocks if you have done the groundwork required, right? They invest heavily in India. We say that, right, that you got to invest heavily in the foundation of the house to make sure that it lasts long. Similarly, are you really putting in what's required in the foundation of the house? Now, what are the foundations? Array of skills can you learn or not? And also, be curious about things. There is another thing that I've noticed. People who are curious, they don't have a problem in finding a career. They don't have a problem in pursuing something that matters to them, because they're naturally curious. They want to see how things work. They want to learn about how to be a master of ceremony, for example, or how to be a magician, for example. They are just curious, and they go about and learn those skills. And I think, don't let that curiosity to die, because that could be the spark that you need to further your cause in the current work, but also helps you to maybe change career, maybe start a side hustle, for example, right? So all those things, that's what I will probably share.
Thanks, Naishad. Great chat. It's been really, really good. Thank you for coming to this show. And I'm sure we will keep in touch and we'll see you soon. And thank you to all my viewers for tuning in, listening. I hope you found it helpful. Stay well, stay safe, and good night, Melvin.
Thank you very much, Saleh. See you.